Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I heard the gentleman from Henrico yesterday, I think it was yesterday, say that we had the worst recovery from the worst recession since the Great Depression. And in a sense, he's right. We have had the worst. We've also had the best recovery from the worst recession since the Great Depression, because it was the only recovery from the worst recession since the Great Depression. To me, the more interesting question is, how come we didn't have the worst depression? So I've been looking at economic statistics from 1929 and 2008 and comparing them. And it may surprise some people in this chamber to know that we were worse off in 2008 than we were in 1929. The economy was not good in 1929. We were in free fall in 2008. The difference, of course, is what happened the following year. In 1930, President Hoover decided this was the time to balance the budget. So he cut spending, he raised taxes, he removed economic stimulus at the worst possible time. We all know the result. President Obama went in a different direction. He went for massive economic stimulus. He appointed a wonderful Federal Reserve chair, who I happen to think is the best we've ever had, Janet Yellen, who believed in accommodative policy. And we turned out so well that actually unemployment never got as high as it did, for example, under President Reagan. By the way, President Reagan defined the best economy is when the misery index is the lowest. And he said, add the inflation rate to the unemployment rate, find out what the misery index is, and when it's lowest, that's when there's the least amount of misery. And I'm proud to say that under President Obama, we have the lowest misery index in 50 years. Thanks, Obama. But there are storm clouds on the horizon. It is true that we are not recovering as fast as we could have, and I would argue the reason for that is because of the sequester. In 2011, 2012, there were those in Congress that took an axe rather than a scalpel to the federal budget and harmed federal workers. Now, federal workers are very important to Virginia. Virginia has more federal workers than any other state in the United States. 4% of Virginia's workforce is non-defense federal workers. It's 10% up in Northern Virginia. That's a lot of people. That's my constituents. That's everyone in this room's constituents. And we all know that federal workers work hard. When I went in the federal workforce, I took a massive pay cut because I wanted to do my best to help my community. And I know that everyone in this room is taking a massive pay cut because you believe in public service. And so these servants are to be commended. Now I fear other storm clouds on the horizon. I know that the new president has issued a hiring freeze for 90 days of federal workers, ostensibly to find out how to cut them further. This is not good for Virginia. This is not good for the federal workforce. This is not good for the economy. So I hope we will encourage our president and our members of Congress to be against stopping federal workers with an axe. If you find a program you don't like, cut that program. But this axing to federal workers doesn't help our economy. It doesn't help Virginia. And I urge everyone to encourage our friends in Washington not to do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.